Yo, 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 yo! Junky Chinese equipment represent! Guess who has gotten his ad revenue money, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is how I give it back to the crew. This is Sensah Empire Pro rear Mac for you. So, how cringy was what you just saw? Because when I was recording this, my cringe meter went off the scale. Anyhow, this is a Sensah Empire Pro rear derailleur, which I bought with revenue money from this channel, along with another item which I'm going to present once it's going to arrive, well, in a few days, weeks, I don't know. Anyhow, this is a Sensah Empire Pro. It's going to work with my Sensah Empire Pro shifters on my gravel bike, and let's start the review with the most important stat of all, which is going to be weight. And it weighs just below 200 grams, 198 grams. In comparison, Shimano 105 7000 series short cage is weighing in 220 grams, so we're going to be obviously 10% faster on this one. And just for the sake of reference, the SRAM GX, this one is going to be replacing, weighs in 290 grams. So, now that we have the important stuff out of the way, what are the features of this particular derailleur? Okay, let's start with the basics. The most of the construction is made out of aluminum. Those are castings, so here, and here, those are castings which are forged or some other magical process. The back plate of the cage is also aluminum. The inner cage or the inner plate of the cage is made of carbonium, and the rest of the hardware is made of obviously a steelium. And of course, if you haven't noticed yet, the pulleys are made of plastic or plasticium if we're keeping with the theme. The pulleys are rolling on cartridge bearings. The bolts here are adjustable with an Allen wrench, so this is better solution than a typical screwdriver. The main bolt is aluminum. There is no discernible play in any part of the derailleur. And well, in all honesty, from the first impression, I just can't find a flaw in this one. With the exception of the previous thing from Sensah I had, I also couldn't find a flaw, and it turned out to be absolutely disastrous. However, and if you haven't noticed, this thing is throwing a gauntlet at ceramic speed, because this pulley is 11 tooth, so standard size, but this one is a 13 tooth, so this is very non-standard and large size. Obviously you're going to have much more menu watts with this one than with the standard rear derailleur. When comparing to 105, we can see that the parallelogram slant of both derailleurs is more or less the same. However, 105 has no offset of the guide pulley. As you can see, I'm going to be rotating the cage, and the pulley stays in the same position. However, this thing has a little bit of an offset of the guide pulley, which means that while the capacity of this one I think is 29 teeth or 31 teeth, this one we can estimate is going to be approximately 35-37 teeth, so pretty good. The distance between the pulleys here is 75 millimeters. Here it's 71 millimeters, and in the GX it's 74 millimeters. So all three are essentially GS, even though this one is marked as an SS, but you know, this is a short cage these days. When for my boomer senses, this is a short cage, and you know, okay. Continuing. The return spring of the parallelogram is very strong. The spring in the main pivot is also very strong, which means that it might be quite a little more harder to shift, but the haptic response, the positive feeling of the shifter, is going to be very, very pronounced, which is a good thing, especially for a road bike, and especially for me, because I'm running really large frames, and really large frames require a ton of cable, and that's an issue. For example, in comparison to this GX, this spring pretty much has no tension or very little tension. You can see that this might be because the links on the parallelogram on the GX are much longer, so it might be the same spring but simply a different leverage throughout the stroke of the parallelogram. And in all honesty, I think that's just about everything I have to say about this, because I mean, the first impression is actually very positive, and obviously considering that they are copying SRAM, but not really copying because they are making their own spin on it, it might actually be performing really well. Well, you can see there's a inline, or there's a barrel adjuster over here, and it actually adjusts something, so pretty good. Okay, let's mount this to the bike and see how it's going to perform. Alright, I installed everything. The installation was pretty easy. There is no discernible play here, so there is not that issue that was present on the previous Sensah derailleur I had. As you can see, I have used the V-brake guide cable kind of thing trick in order to route the cable. Let's run it through all the gears and see how it performs. As you can see, it's not really good. The problem is that I've been adjusting it for 20 minutes or so after installation, and I can't get it to shift perfectly. And unfortunately, I've gotten this derailleur solely because I had the same issue with this GX I had before on here. And the problem is that somewhere around the length of the housing that goes to the derailleur, there's a ton of friction from whatever reason, and one of something I suspect is that this is an XL frame. There's a lot of cable running through all this thing, and since this is the shifter with a hidden shift cable, there's a pretty much quite significant amount of friction involved with just routing the cable through all the bends and places around the bar. So I'll have to investigate this further. However, after playing with this, you can see that there are a few gears that it really hesitates when it comes to shifting. However, I really can't blame the derailleur yet, because you see, apart from the size of the frame and the friction when it comes to the cable, because you can feel this when you're shifting, the lever action isn't instant. You can have to pull it. There's a ton of, like something you were pulling a string. That's that kind of sensation. However, the equipment I'm using is a SRAM Eagle chain, the Sensah Empire Pro derailleur, and ZTTO 11 to 34 lightweight 12-speed cassette. And it's, even if we disregard the problem with the friction here, I really don't know whether it's the issue with the shifter being imprecise or the derailleur here, although there is really no reason for it to work well as bad as it does. It simply seems to have a problem with pulling the cable forward and back. Anyhow, there might be an issue with this cassette because it's obviously not Shimano, not SRAM, not a brand name that you can trust when it comes to shifting performance. So if they skimped a few ramps here and there, then with the combination with the chain, it might be an issue, I don't know. Point being that I really don't know yet whether the issues I'm having here are because I have mismatched parts, or some of the parts are not up to spec, or for example this chain is worn out for whatever reason. It shouldn't be, but who knows. Anyhow, I have this Sunshine 12-speed 1134 cassette, which is a bit different, and this one is actually what the SRX, the Empire Pro, is being sold with. So I will try it with that. Anyhow, for now I'm going to leave it here. We'll see, maybe it's going to wear itself in, it's going to work better. I don't know, maybe. Because I'm not really happy with it tonight now. But we'll see. Maybe I'm going to get used to it. And if you're wondering, the issue I had with this one is that I was able to adjust it more or less correctly with first 11 gears, but when I would be shifting to the 12th gear, it wouldn't be returning from it for whatever reason. Anyhow, I'm going to write it now. I'm most likely going to surmise everything once I'm going to make the review of the entire bike. So I hope you enjoyed this content. I hope you're going to, well, stick around in the channel. I just thought that might be good reason to switch this thing to my road bike, because it's a slightly smaller frame, so that's long, so there might be less friction. Anyhow, I hope you like the content. I hope you're going to stick around, and I hope to, well, see you in the next video.